Back again for another drive time. House cleaning, if you can like it, you can share it. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Never take the light of truth, place it under a basket. Let it shine bright for all to see. Now, what does God say? My people perish for a lack of knowledge. Why am I making this video? Good friend of mine, whom I love dearly like a brother. I won't mention his name because I don't want y'all looking him up, but he sent me a request to sign a petition to get rid of the Electoral College. Now, this is, of course, a push from liberals, spearheaded by Nancy Pelosi, because I've seen her speaking on this subject. And the lie that she puts forth is this: are we okay with the will of the people not being honored? So I'm paraphrasing the wording. So I decided I need to educate my brother, and I started out by saying, Doctor said, you don't understand the Electoral College and the purpose thereof. And I started out with giving him a simple explanation. The Electoral College is to basically ensure that the will of the people, even the smallest in the group states, that their voices are heard. So breaking that down, we have larger states. And if the larger states wanted a particular thing and they all got together and they decided that they wanted XYZ, that would essentially mute the voices of the smaller states. So they put in a system by which it was not done. The president was not elected by majority vote or mob rule. And even after explaining that, I saw that I still did not get through to him. And basically he came back with, well, you know, we're tired of this. So let me run it down so that you all will understand. And when I'm done, you will understand it better. You know, we sing a song in church, and we will understand it better by and by. So I'm going to make sure that you get this by and by, because when I was done, we were in somewhat of an agreement after I went down memory lane of history. And I also followed that up with telling him there are two types of truth: objective truth and subjective truth. Objective truth doesn't care whether you like it or not. It is fact. It is what it is. It is undeniable. One of my old terms: verifiable, documented, and undeniable. Subjective truth is how people tend to interpret things or to put forth things to push a particular agenda. And that is the case with the Electoral College. So let me just kind of run through what I went through with him and trying to get him to understand that getting rid of the Electoral College would be one of the worst things that we could do. And this is based on history. So 5 presidents have won by virtue of, 5 out of 45 have won by virtue of the Electoral College. Rutherford B. Hayes, I believe, was the first one, and he is significant, and I will explain why. And there may have been one before him, John Quincy Adams. He may have been, of course, we have George W. Bush, and Donald Trump is included in that number. Now, there was one exception to the win via the Electoral College: Rutherford B. Hayes. Now, I want y'all to really pay close attention to what I'm about to say. Rutherford B. Hayes is the exception to the rule because not only did he lose the Electoral College vote, he also lost the popular vote. And so I know you may ask, well, why in the hell did Rutherford B. Hayes How did he end up in the White House? Real simple. This was post or during the period of Reconstruction, right after the Civil War. The South had just gotten their asses kicked because they wanted to maintain slavery, which at the time, before the Civil War started, no one was trying to stop them from maintaining slavery. They just weren't going to allow them to expand westward with slavery. So they fired the first shot. They said, basically, if they can stop us from expanding slavery westward, eventually, because of the abolitionists, they will end up trying to abolish slavery altogether. And of course, we produce all of our goods at little to no cost because we have free labor. So I hope you're keeping up. So after they got their asses kicked in the Civil War, there were a majority of the country, and this is where the Electoral College is key. There were a majority in the country that liked slavery, okay? They liked slavery. They liked things the way that they were. That's right. But the South was still getting their ass kicked because of the federal troops down in the South ensuring that the rights of the slaves, former slaves, were not being violated, even though they had emancipated. The South didn't like that. So they came up with this thing, and this is where the exception comes in, with a compromise. It was called the Compromise of 1877. So the South said to the North, okay, our guy won, all right, the popular vote and the Electoral College. But if you will remove the troops from the South and allow us to start putting our feet back in the asses of Negroes the way that we were doing when slavery was legal, we will let Rutherford B. Hayes have the White House. See, that is the exception to the rule. It's verifiable, it's documented, it is undeniable. Just pick up a history book. So Rutherford B. Hayes took the office. And another point, well, let me go on and finish with this point. So when the Electoral College was to the advantage of racists, because they did not want the South with their feet, I'm sorry, listen to me, with their feet, listen to me, there we go, messing up another word, with their feet in their asses, they were willing to forego their win. That's right. This is the only time the rule of law did not work. There are two other situations where the rule of law doesn't work. When politicians ignore the Bill of Rights and give us things like gun control, like what they are doing in Virginia, and when bad cops go and murder unarmed citizens. Those are the times when the Bill of Rights or the rule of law does not work. And this was one time when the Republicans, and I am ashamed of them for that, allowed the Democrats of the South to have their way simply so that they could get in the White House. And I suspect that they did it because they felt that they could take the country in a better direction than which it was going. Another point of note is that John Quincy Adams was one president who did not own slaves. Look up the significance of that. And when he won the White House, the very next year, 1824, the very next year, 1825, the Democrat-Republican Party split. And one morphed into the Whigs, the other, the Democrats. But I'm off the beaten path on that. So the Electoral College is in place to ensure that the voice of the minority is not overruled by the majority. So then my friend comes back and says, well, why do we want a minority of people impacting the lives of the majority? And I said, my dear friend, here's what you don't understand about this situation. We have a majority of people that now want to destroy this country. And I gave him a statistics. 1990, 85% of Americans identified as Christians. Today, only 65%. Well, why do you think that is? Because Christianity has been under attack. Our kids have no moral compass anymore. That is unfortunate because their parents, not my generation, not of my generation, aren't teaching their children the value of a moral compass. And this is when you see situations where middle school children can go out and rape and unarmed woman, okay? That you get things such as that. Moving right along, when you disregard the rule of law, a minority of people, as well as a majority of people, can do things that will impact those negatively by violating the Bill of Rights. And what is the Bill of Rights about? It is about saying what the government is limited in doing, what they cannot do to you. Not what they can do to you, but it is limiting them in what they are able to get done in this country. But primarily it protects the rights of the smallest group, and the smallest group is the individual. That is why we have the Bill of Rights. And so I explained to him, when you have media that is out and pushing forth a narrative that is anti-American, anti-God, anti-normal, they push it out via the media, they push it out via Hollywood. People then begin to think what was once abnormal is now normal. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I did a video called "What is Abnormal is Now Normal." You're sitting back watching TV, and then you see two men walk in together holding hands and fall backwards on a mattress because they're out shopping for a mattress for their bedroom. Hey, look, do you? I don't care. If you bite the pillow, that's on you. But from a Christian perspective, homosexuality is not normal. But that is what is being taught to our children. And I explained to my friend, if liberals had their way, getting rid of the Electoral College, because you need that to have somebody in office that can move forward the agenda of the left wing. I've given this definition before. Conservatism versus progressivism. Conservatism, in simple terms, what works is what's best. What has always worked will always be what's best. Now, that does not mean getting from point A to point B has to be done by crawling or always walking. We have automobiles, whereas we once had horses and a horse and carriage. But still, the automobile carries us from point A to point B. How do I get from point A to point B? Well, I'm going to use this method, but it is still the same, a mode of transportation. I hope I'm making that clear. Progressivism is completely different. Progressivism is talking about what used to work no longer works. Let's do things differently. Same-sex marriage. Men identifying as women. Getting rid of those things which we once valued for those things which we no longer value. For instance, protecting our children from pedophiles, not teaching them that pedophilia is a normal sexual activity. That is progressivism. I was in a debate once among myself and some Democrats. And one guy said, the Bible is dated. We should get rid of it and move more towards progressive ideas. This is what I'm talking about. This is what liberals want to do. They want to get rid of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which led me to the next point of my argument with my friend. I explained to him, one of those things that they want to do is to disarm Americans and to limit their free speech. I am in Facebook jail. The charge, hate speech. What was the actual act? I posted a video from that was put out of the woman who's dead now. She said, the comedian, she said, we all know, speaking of those in Hollywood, that Michelle is a tranny, Obama is gay. We all know. And I put that in quotes and I said, she's now dead. And it's a video of her. It wasn't hate speech. It was her expressing what she believed to be fact. And I got 30 days in Facebook jail. Free speech is under attack. A guy who was a fire chief here in Atlanta was fired because on his off time, he wrote a book about the virtues of Christianity. And in that book, he said that based on his teachings that he has garnered from studying the Bible, homosexuality is sin. Well, they fired him for that. Free speech is under attack. Now, he got paid because they violated his First Amendment rights, but that does not mean that they are not under attack. Then the Second Amendment, I explained to my friend, once the South agreed to the North removing the troops so that they could go back to putting their feet in the Negroes' asses again, the first thing they did was kick all of the Republican Negroes out of houses of representation in the Senate in the South. The last black to serve in the South was in 1901, okay? Then they started passing the black codes. Among those black codes was blacks not being able to be armed. Why? So that the KKK could do their night rides without fear of retaliation. You stop the spread of truth or ideas of liberty and freedom. Then you disarm the people that they may not be able to defend themselves. This is how it works. It has been done repeatedly throughout history. Hitler and the Jews, Pol Pot, Lenin, Stalin. Okay, this is the way they do it. They disarm you, stop you from being able to speak. Then they come at you and they kill you if you are bold enough to disagree. And if you read your Bibles, you know that it happened to Jesus Christ as well. They put him up on a cross. So my point to my friend was, if you buy this lie that the Democrats are selling, that our voices are not being heard because of the Electoral College, I promise you, your wills will not be honored. Instead, their will be felt, and you won't be able to do a damn thing about it but lay down and take it. And I sent him a photograph of Nazi soldiers pointing their rifles at unarmed Jews and shooting them in the back of the head and letting their bodies fall into a ditch. I sent him a photograph of Negroes being lynched. I sent him a photograph of the media talking about Virginia being where they protested that it was a white supremacist rally when there were hundreds of Negroes that were present protesting the law that they are putting into place to disarm them. This is what the media does. They made you think that things such as saying Merry Christmas was offensive, all the way down to saying things like hello, sir, to a man who decided to identify as a woman. They brought in the PC. That was an attack on free speech. I know I'm going on and on, but I went through all of this with him to get him to understand, don't fall for the lie. The Electoral College works. The rule of law, the Bill of Rights, they work. But it is our responsibility to elect individuals that will honor and obey the rule of law. This is why I always ask people when I was in my debates, raise your hands if you want to give up 10% of your Bill of Rights. I've gone down to, okay, 0.5%. Nobody ever raised their hands because nobody in their right mind will admit that they do, but yet they will turn around and vote for the likes of David Perdue, Doug Collins, whom everybody loves now, or Johnny Isaacson. Why? Because, oh, they're good guys. I don't give a damn about them being good guys. Only thing I care about is somebody that is going to obey the rule of law, vote with the Constitution 100% of the time, and 100% of the Constitution when they're doing it. That's all I care about. That is the one thing that I have promised that I would do if I am elected to U.S. Senate. And I've also told you, and I'll say it again, if you, and I'm speaking to libertarians now, because I don't agree with everything that Ron Paul said, because I'm not on my knees honoring the libertarian platform, it is because I have never claimed to be a libertarian. I believe that we need government, limited government. I believe in borders. You don't have a country if you don't have borders. I believe in some taxation for the basic necessities of running a country and providing governance for the lawless. I believe in those things. Never heard Ron Paul say that he didn't either. But all of these purists, you really need to go and get an understanding, because you are just as ignorant as my friend. And when I say ignorance, it is not an attack. It is simply going to what the Bible says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. That is just it. And I don't want to preach, and I'm not going to. I think I've said enough. Getting rid of the Electoral College is an asinine idea. That is just the end of it and the truth of the matter. It works. We just need to elect people that are going to obey the rule of law. And if you are foolish enough is to believe the lies that you are being told by liberal Democrats, if you are foolish enough to believe that, you are handing them the keys over your life, where you will not be the one determining what is best for you. They will be the ones determining what's best for you. There has been a plan in place since the advent of the central bank in 1913 to decimate the middle class. And one of the things that he said to me was, I'm sick of the rich getting richer. I said, if the rich get richer, all things being equal, even those that are middle class, if they go and work, they will get richer as well. More investment, more jobs, greater pay. Donald Trump has proven that already. However, it is not an issue with the rich getting richer, the lie of class warfare pushed by liberal Democrats. It is more about the 1% owning the world. That is why we're in the wars overseas. That is why they push division through the media. That is why they sell the lies. So this is not about the rich getting richer. It is about the 1% owning everything, including you. And in 1913, they made slaves of white people for the first time. They made slaves of the Negro for the third time. The first time was 15th century slavery, moving forward up to the Civil War. The second time was Jim Crow laws. The third time was with whites with the advent of the Federal Reserve, the 1%, the central bank. The fourth time, of course, was government dependence. Liberal Democrats, starting with FDR, who created the infrastructure, the foundation for generational welfare. Okay. And of course, all the way down through LBJ and Jimmy Carter with the Department of Education, which has basically destroyed the bulk of, I don't know why people keep wanting to call me, but anyway, that's a fact. So let us not let it be the fifth time for the Negroes and the second time for white Americans by buying into this idea that we need to get rid of the Electoral College. We do not. T-Mod out. Drive time. Till next.